Hello and welcome to episode number 15 of the Rollo and Slappy Show. Today is November 28th, 2016. I am Rollo McFlugel, and with me is Slappy Jones too, and we are both at McFlugel.com. The show notes page for this episode is McFlugel.com/15. One quick announcement before we get started. Bill Kristol was active on Twitter recently talking about how great the Iraq War was. And Bill Kristol has never seen a war he doesn't love. So I thought, why not let him see his handiwork over in Iraq? So I set up a GoFundMe page to send Bill Kristol on an Iraqi vacation. Of course, he'll never take us up on that, and I never wanted to give him any financial support whatsoever. So any proceeds we get will be donated to antiwar.com for all the great work they do. So check out the show notes page, mcflugel.com/15, for a link to that. And with that, I'll send it over to Slappy to go over tonight's episode topic.
Thanks, Rollo. Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today we're going to talk about some of the crazy liquor laws here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We have something called the Liquor Control Board. I don't know if every state does. I know I went to school in Indiana, and the liquor laws were much more loose, much more lenient, even in Indiana, in the Midwest Bible Belt. We have the PLCB. And with these crazy laws, there's only one store you can buy liquor, or one chain of stores, we'll call it. They used to be known as state stores. I think they still are somewhat, but they're now called Fine Wine and Good Spirits. And if you were driving past, you would think it's just a liquor store. It doesn't say, like, welcome to the state store. But that's what they were always called. That's what they were always called when I was growing up, going to the state store. They choose what gets to be put on the shelves, and the prices are the same throughout the entire state, give or take for some county taxes here and there. But no matter if you buy it in Center City or you buy it in rural Pennsylvania, the price for your 12-year-old Glenfiddich is going to be the same. So there is no open market in Pennsylvania for liquor. Even the beer laws are kind of funny. We have beer distributors here. You can buy beer by the case. You cannot buy six-packs at distributors. You can buy six-packs at taverns. You can't buy beer in a supermarket unless that supermarket has a separate restaurant. It could be connected to the store, but there has to be separate space, a bar, seating for at least 30, and then you can buy a six-pack there. You can also have takeout six-packs at most bars. But your local corner store, your gas station, as far as I know, none of them sell any alcohol at all. None of them are allowed to. So Rollo lives close to the border of Delaware. And let's just send it over to you for your thoughts. Then I'll come back with some questions, some devil's advocate type questions when the topic of privatizing the LCB comes up.
Thanks, Slappy. Yeah, this is Villa Rica rum. It is contraband because I purchased it in Delaware and brought it back over across the border into Pennsylvania, which is what I do for nearly every purchase of alcohol that I ever make. Part of the reason, well, the main reason is because it's a lot cheaper and I don't have to go to separate stores to buy beer and other liquors. So it's a lot more convenient. I don't have to buy cases of beer. I know there was a couple years ago when I worked someplace else, I was driving after work to a friend's house and wanted to pick up, some beers to have that night. And so I went to a beer distributor, went into the coolers. And a lot of beers and a lot of nicer beers are in 12 packs. They don't come in cases. And so I grabbed a 12-pack, went to go ring it up, and the cashier said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you have to buy an entire case of that. You got to grab 2 of them. That's the law." And the look on his face was like, "I don't want to have to do this to you, but
but I'll lose my job."
Right. And so I had to buy a case of beer when really all I wanted was a 6-pack to begin with. But I thought I could get away with just doing it.
If I can interject real quick.
Sure.
Well, just cut your story off mid-sentence. Yeah. But I read, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I read the reason we have that rule. So this law was put in right after Prohibition. And the reason was because they wanted it to be harder for poorer people to buy beer. So the idea was now you can't go in and buy 1 or 2 or 6 beers. You have to buy 24, which is going to make it more expensive and more to carry home with you, and so less people will be drinking. But I think what actually happened was more people bought lots of cheap beer and probably drank a lot more. But
no, that makes sense, because most of these laws, these archaic laws, that they don't have good reasons for them, like marijuana being illegal. Part of the reason was because they thought it helped black men get white women. Marriage became a government thing because they didn't like interracial marriages going on. But it's funny because there was a few years ago, there was an effort to try to privatize the state stores, and the state stores are they employ a union. I don't know which union they are. I don't know off the top of my head. Actually, it's going to be linked in the show notes page, an article I wrote about this commercial. And the commercial is 2 women sitting in the park, and they're talking about how people wanted to privatize the liquor. And they said, oh, in other places that kids die from drunk driving accidents. And the woman hugs her kid and says, I don't think profit's worth the life of a kid. So their reason for not privatizing liquor sales in the state is to save the children. And really, anytime someone says the reason for doing anything is to save the children, means they don't have a real reason for doing it. I mean, it's if you can find me a situation where it's for the children is legitimate, I'll gladly stand corrected. But part of the reason too is they say, because it's funny, because I remember going out of state. I guess when I was old enough to notice this, and going into gas stations and seeing in the back where they have all the drinks, and they just had beer, single bottles of beer that you can buy.
You never see that here.
Yeah, I went to Louisiana, and they have drive-through daiquiri places. And so the argument I always hear is that, well, if you do that, people can buy alcohol and drink and drive, and that's not good. Okay. I don't think there's many people who think drunk driving is a good idea. So what you're saying is that if you don't want people to drink and drive, you don't want people to get drunk, so you prevent them from getting a single bottle of beer, but you force them to get an entire case of beer. And you can buy cold cases of beer. Mm-hmm. So what's to prevent someone who really just has a bad alcohol problem to buy a case of beer, sit in his car, and start ripping through them? It doesn't help anything.
Yeah, but even that, I mean, it's just rare. It doesn't happen. Like, right. How often does that happen? And we have that today, It's just the fear. It's not like, I mean, these beer distributors are everywhere. I can't walk to many places in my neighborhood here, but I can walk to a beer distributor. It's right up the street. And then there's another one right down, within a mile. They're all over the place. Yeah, they have regulated hours, but anyone can go in and do that. So what does it matter if you have to go in a beer distributor or if you can go to the store where you're going anyway?
Right. And if you make them buy a case, then they're
right. Exactly. Now you have more.
Right. And the other thing too is it's funny because I live from by way of the bird flies, I think a mile from Delaware. And there are no beer distributors around me. They're all right on the border. They're all lined up there because who's going to open up a beer distributor?
Right.
Or, I guess the state's smart enough to not open up a state store on the border, especially when they can't change the prices. They're all the same around the state. So if you try to open up a state store and you're trying to compete with Delaware, it's going to fail right away. And speaking of that, so I mentioned this rum that I'm drinking, which is delicious, by the way. It's contraband because you are not allowed to buy alcohol as a Pennsylvania resident in another state and transport it back. I think the reasons for that is that they want you to pay taxes on it. Even though you can, on your tax return form, it always says, did you pay for something outside the state and not pay state sales tax on it? But you will. If you can
find anyone who fills that part out.
I want to go to because it's really the law is for PA sales tax. is if the store doesn't have a nexus, so they don't have like a physical location where they always are, then the sales tax is on, it's the buyer is responsible for paying the sales tax. So I want to go to yard sales and ask people, are you going to pay sales tax on
Charge
that?
some sales tax, yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those unenforced laws, I guess, unless they want to nail you for something. But actually, so there's right on 995, which is on the border, right over the border in Delaware, near Philadelphia, in Wilmington, basically. There is a large wine and spirits, or Total Wine store. And of course, that's where I used to, before I moved out to where I am, that's where I would go if I have to buy, any significant amount of alcohol. And so tons of people from Pennsylvania there. So what they do around the holidays, like Christmas time, is that the state police go into the parking lot, wait for people with Pennsylvania tags to come out of the store. They start driving. They go north on 95 back into Pennsylvania, flip the lights on, pull them over, and fine them. I forget exactly what the fines are, but it's per bottle of beer, and then it's another fine for per bottle of wine and liquor. But it's insane. Like if you're having a party or something, then buy a couple of cases of beer, a bunch of bottles of wine, and some liquor. It turns into a horribly, horribly, horribly expensive endeavor. So they sit there and just pull people over and fine them. And what harm is there in buying alcohol across the border? If I ever get pulled over for that, that's going to be the time that you're going to have to bail me out of prison, because I don't know how I'm going to hold back. Because as a police officer, do you go home and tell your kids, hey, I was doing a really good job today. There's someone bought alcohol, a case of beer in Delaware, and I pulled them over and fined them for it, because that's not what you're supposed to do. Is that why people join the police force? So they could do stuff like that?
If you don't like the laws, move to Delaware.
Yeah. Or, a tip for anyone who's ever involved in this: if you do see a police officer, if this ever happens to you, don't drive out of Delaware or the state that you're buying the alcohol in. Just drive around or stop, pull over, whatever. But it's only once you cross over the border. Apparently, it's okay if you purchase the alcohol out of state and use it out of state. Mm-hmm. It's arbitrary and silly, but
so. Anyway, you mentioned that a couple years back, I don't remember how long ago, maybe 2012 or so, they were talking about privatizing the LCB in Pennsylvania. And recently I was talking to a state senator, guy I just ran into, and was asking him about it and what he thought if that would ever happen. And he told me that actually with our state store system, we actually do have a free market for liquor, because any liquor company that wants to sell their stuff in a state store can. They will take anyone. You don't have to donate money to Governor Wolf. They'll put you in there, and if it sells, they'll continue to sell it. So we do have a free market for liquor in this state. So what do you think about that? What would you say to that? How do you reply to that one?
Well, first of all, I'm impressed that you didn't laugh more when you said that we have a free market.
Yeah. I actually did laugh when he said it, because it was kind of fun.
It's insane.
It's fun.
So first of all, if I decided that I wanted to operate a still in my house and my property, and the government found out, I would get arrested. It's illegal to operate stills and stuff in Pennsylvania. Very, very illegal. And they actually offer bounties if you know someone that does, so you can get paid to turn your friends in. So it's absolutely insane to say that we have a free market when you can wind up in prison for trying to participate in this free market.
Also, you mentioned the prices in Pennsylvania are a little higher than Delaware. I don't buy a lot of liquor. I really don't know how bad, how different the prices are. But say you owned a corner store, deli, whatever. You're selling sandwiches, selling a couple conveniences. If you went down to Delaware and bought a case, a whole bunch of liquor, whiskey, we'll call it Glenfiddich. You buy a case of them, and you wanted to sell it in your store at maybe a little lower than Pennsylvania prices, but a little higher than Delaware prices. Do you think the state would say, well, it's okay because we have a free market for liquor in this state. Thank you, and I hope you do well in business?
Yeah, you would get shut down so quickly, as we all know. There's so much. You can't have a free market when all the licensing and permission slips you got to do.
And plus the fees, the license.
Right.
It's insane. You can't do it. You just can't do it.
Yeah,
So then another objection I heard, this is from a friend of mine, really not, anyone special. But we were talking about it years ago, and he says, well, look, if it's profitable, our state needs money. We have to fund our schools, our roads, etc. Why privatize it if the state is making money from it? And again, us libertarians, we kind of laugh at that. But as someone who is not a libertarian, that could be pretty convincing. Like, look, hey, our state needs money to operate. Instead of taxing us, we all hate taxes. Nobody wants more taxes. Even Democrats don't want to pay more taxes. Let them sell liquor. Like, they'll make money on it, and that'll help fund the stuff that we need. What do you say to that?
Why can't anyone else sell it too? That's really our problem with government in general, is that they claim monopolies over everything. So it's fine. It's kind of maybe a little bit counterintuitive, but at least I'm not asking for government to not exist. I'm just asking for it to not claim monopoly over everything. So let other people compete. And if you sell alcohol the best, so be it.
Yeah. So switching gears, a good enough answer for me. The other point is, they're also using violence to keep people out of the market.
Right.
And what if prices could be lower? What if more people could be employed? They're all afraid of losing jobs. What if more jobs are created because more places are selling it?
Exactly.
What store doesn't want a liquor expert? People always have questions. If someone's going in to buy a whiskey and they're not familiar with whiskey, they can have an expert tell them about it. Yeah.
And since the state is setting the price, like you said, there's no way to have the feedback mechanism of prices to know how your prices are set. So you don't know if you're wasting resources by having the state control everything, which goes into exactly what you were just saying.
So switching back to the state senator I was talking to him, I kind of mentioned just opening it up, let's just get rid of it and let people decide and do what they want. And his response was, well, see, the trouble there is then your choices are going to be Budweiser and Bud Light, because that's all who can get on the shelves in Walmart. Walmart's not going to have your local microbrew or your smaller regional breweries. It's hard to get on a shelf at Walmart. This is a big national chain. They're going to have the InBev products, and that's all you're going to get. All these little breweries are going to go away. Do you have anything to say on that response? Yeah,
so there's a place near you that has a lot of craft beer and imports, high quality imports. You can buy single bottles of, and they're expensive and everything. I don't think. Yeah, it's one of the better places to buy beer, actually, even though it's in Pennsylvania. Why would that business start selling Bud Light and Budweiser? It wouldn't go away. There's a reason why they sell the alcohol, the beer selection that they have. Why would what Walmart does affect them at all?
Right.
Unless people, because I know most beer drinkers, I don't buy Bud Light ever or Budweiser. The reason I don't is because I don't like it. And I don't care how cheap it is. I don't want to buy it.
Yeah, but there's some people in the market for cheap beer, and that's what they want. They want to go home after work and crack a few Budweisers, and that's fine, and they can do that.
Right, and it's a different market.
Exactly. That was my next point.
Right, I stole that from you when we were talking earlier.
No, I was just going to say, these are just two completely different markets. The people who want to go out and get their, they like to taste different IPAs or like to drink Belgian beers that are a little more expensive, are not interested in Budweiser and Bud Light, and they're not going to buy that instead. They're going to go seek it out and find it.
Right. On top. Go ahead.
I think these small regional breweries know that, and they have their target markets, and they know who's going to drink their beer. Yeah, I'm sure they would love it if they could be as big as Budweiser. I mean, who wouldn't? But they also know what they're selling to and who they're selling to.
Right, and those microbrews they're successful, a lot of them, and they have such tiny fractions in the market share. What's Sam Adams has a commercial where they're saying, like, in our market, they're Sam Adams is a pretty popular beer, but their market share is what, 3% or something? They said, or maybe 1%. I forget what it was, but it's a surprisingly small percentage of the market share. And they're a very, very popular beer that I don't think it's going out of business anytime soon. So they don't need that, high volume sale that InBev and Miller Coors and all that stuff. And furthermore, if it were true that Walmart would just sell Bud Light and Budweiser and you wouldn't be able to buy anything anywhere else, then why isn't the same thing happening with like delis and other specialty shops, that since Walmart's cheap and just sells the big name, big box stuff or whatever, why isn't everybody else out of business who tries to compete with that? It's the same thing. They're different markets. People, just because someone's buying cheese doesn't mean they're in the same market as the guy next door. I mean, as an Italian, someone from Italian heritage, I take, the Italian cheese very seriously. So I'm not going to buy the junk sawdust craft Parmesan.
That's right. No, it's important in life.
Right. It's to me, it's terrible. And like I was saying with the Bud Light and Budweiser, I don't care how cheap it is. I'm not buying it. I'm going to buy the correct stuff to put on gravy, which is Lugatelli cheese.
What you put on your potatoes.
Yeah. I think like two people are going to get that reference. People are going to.
Yeah. Well, one last point before we wrap it up for the week. I spoke, this was a couple years back too, while I was talking to one of the staffers in Harrisburg, a pretty high up there guy. And I was asking him what he thinks the chances of this thing passing are, and he said 0. And this is for all you Pennsylvania Republicans out there, or just Republicans in general. He told me that Republicans will not allow it to happen because they think it's going to hurt the beer distributors in their districts, their constituents. Those are the guys who are their, they donate some money to the campaign, their friends, their neighborhood guys, and they're afraid it's going to hurt their business. And so the Republicans are never going to pass it, according to the staffer I spoke to. So think about that next time you pull the lever for your small government Republicans, and think about what they're really after. But that's all I have. Did you have anything else to add?
No, just that maybe one day, if I'm really bored one day around Christmas time, I'll go to that Total Wine and buy a bunch of soda and put it in boxes so they can't tell what it is, and hopefully they'll chase me down, pull me over. Just
ask what you're being accused of.
And then they get disappointed because I just bought a bunch of soda. But that's playing with fire.
Sure is.
So I don't recommend interacting with the police like that intentionally. Avoid them.
So to wrap up, we think the LCB in Pennsylvania should be privatized. We think it would be better for everyone. You'd have access to more different products. Prices would be better, and jobs would be created, not on Twitter, Facebook, McFlugel.com.
Yep. Show notes page. I lost you there for a few seconds, but I caught the gist of what you're saying. But show notes page again is McFlugel.com/15. So as Slappy said, like us, share us, sign up for our email subscription so you can be up to date on all of our posts. You can find that at McFlugel.com. Make sure to tell your friends and family about us. Share us, please. So with that, happy drinking. I'll finish up this rum here, and Slappy will finish his scotch.
Yes.
So,
peace.
Have a good one.